Ariel Helwani joins the boys in the back to break down Dricus Du Plessis' domination of Sean Strickland at UFC 312 and the implications for his future fight with Khamzat Chimaev. The UFC 312 post-fight show was electrified as Ariel Helwani joined the boys in the back to react to Dricus Du Plessis' commanding victory over Sean Strickland in their highly anticipated rematch. The middleweight championship bout had been one of the most talked-about fights leading up to the event, and Du Plessis left no doubt that he belongs at the top of the division after a decisive performance against Strickland. Dricus Du Plessis silences doubters with a statement win. Coming into UFC 312, the rivalry between Du Plessis and Strickland had been building for months. Their first encounter was a razor-thin affair, with Du Plessis narrowly edging out Strickland in a fight that many felt could have gone either way. The rematch, however, told a very different story. From the opening bell, Du Plessis implemented a strategy that neutralized Strickland's strengths, dictating the pace of the fight with his aggressive pressure and well-rounded skill set. Helwani, known for his keen analysis and insider knowledge of the fight game, was quick to praise Du Plessis for his evolution as a fighter. "You could see that this wasn't the same Du Plessis that fought Strickland the first time," Helwani said. "His striking was sharper, his conditioning was on point, and he fought with a confidence that made all the difference." Throughout the fight, Du Plessis landed powerful combinations, mixing in his striking with takedowns that kept Strickland off balance. While Strickland attempted to implement his trademark jab and counterpunching style, Du Plessis was relentless, consistently closing the distance and forcing Strickland into uncomfortable exchanges. By the championship rounds, it was clear that Du Plessis was in full control. Strickland showed his trademark toughness, refusing to go down despite eating heavy shots, but the accumulation of damage was too much. When the final horn sounded, there was no doubt who had won. The judges' scorecards reflected the dominance. Du Plessis had decisively beaten Strickland, cementing himself as the undisputed middleweight champion. Ariel Helwani on what this means for Dricus Du Plessis' legacy. After the fight, Helwani discussed what this win meant for Du Plessis in the grand scheme of the middleweight division. "This is the kind of performance that puts your name in the history books," Helwani said. "Beating a fighter like Sean Strickland twice, especially in such a dominant fashion, legitimizes Du Plessis as the real deal. There's no more questioning his championship credentials." For Du Plessis, the win not only solidified his status as the best middleweight in the world but also positioned him for the biggest challenge of his career, a showdown with the undefeated wrecking machine Khamzat Chimaev. The looming threat of Khamzat Chimaev. As soon as Du Plessis' hand was raised, all eyes turned to what's next. UFC President Dana White wasted no time in confirming that the next challenger for Du Plessis' title would be none other than Khamzat Chimaev. The undefeated Chechen fighter has been a force of nature since entering the UFC, bulldozing through his competition with a terrifying blend of grappling and striking. Helwani expressed his excitement about the matchup, noting that it has all the makings of a classic. "This is the fight that everyone wants to see," Helwani said. "You've got Du Plessis, who just proved he's a dominant champion, and then you've got Chimaev, who is the scariest rising star in the sport. Something's got to give." Chimaev's path to a title shot has been marked by destruction. His ability to maul opponents in the first round has drawn comparisons to legends like Khabib Nurmagomedov, but unlike Khabib, Chimaev has shown a willingness to stand and trade with elite strikers. His knockout of former title contender Paulo Costa was a clear indication that he's not just a wrestler, he's a complete mixed martial artist. How Dricus Du Plessis matches up against Khamzat Chimaev. Analyzing the potential fight, Helwani broke down the key factors that could determine the outcome. Striking advantage. While Chimaev has shown improved striking, Du Plessis has proven he can hang with the best strikers in the division. His power and precision could pose a serious threat to Chimaev if the fight stays on the feet. Grappling and takedown defense. This is where the fight gets interesting. Chimaev's wrestling is world-class, but Du Plessis has shown excellent takedown defense and the ability to scramble back to his feet. If he can keep the fight standing, he could find success. Cardio and endurance. One of the biggest questions surrounding Chimaev is his gas tank. While he has finished most of his fights early, there have been moments where he looked fatigued in later rounds. Du Plessis, on the other hand, has proven he can push a high pace for 5 rounds. If he can survive the early storm, the fight could shift in his favor. A potential blockbuster fight for the UFC. The UFC has a history of putting together blockbuster fights, and Du Plessis vs. Chimaev has all the ingredients to be one of the biggest middleweight title fights in years. Fans have been clamoring to see Chimaev get his shot at gold, and Du Plessis' dominant win over Strickland has only added to the anticipation. Helwani summed it up best. This is a fight that sells itself. You've got a champion who just put on the performance of his life, and you've got an undefeated monster who has been running through everyone. The stakes couldn't be higher. What's next for Sean Strickland? While the spotlight is on Du Plessis and Chimaev, Helwani also addressed the future of Sean Strickland. Despite the loss, Strickland remains one of the toughest fighters in the division and a fan favorite. "Sean's not going anywhere," Helwani said. "He's a warrior and he'll be back. Maybe he takes some time off, regroups and comes back with a vengeance." There are still a ton of exciting fights for him in this division. Some potential matchups for Strickland include a rematch with Israel Adesanya, a fight with Robert Whittaker, or even a clash with Paulo Costa. Regardless of what's next, Strickland has proven time and again that he's one of the most durable and entertaining fighters in the UFC. Final thoughts. As UFC 312 came to a close, one thing was clear: the middleweight division has never been more exciting. With Du Plessis establishing himself as a dominant champion and Chimaev waiting in the wings, the future of the division is set for an explosive showdown. Helwani's final words captured the moment perfectly. The UFC is at its best when you have rivalries that feel real, champions who prove themselves, and challengers who are waiting to take their shot. Right now, the middleweight division has all of that. Buckle up because it's about to get wild.